Now, I was very triggered when I recorded this first, but now that I'm calmer, I'm going to try again. So people do not realize how physically unwell I was and how that affected my cognition and my awareness and my emotional state, because they are probably not versed on the condition. So my mast cell activity was so bad and affecting my cognition, combined with PTSD, stress, and other things, and and just all the peeing stuff, that I was not even able to use the correct there very often as a place, as an ownership, and as the contraction of they are. I just did not have it in me to remember. I was using them incorrectly. I was spelling things incorrectly, and I made contradictions very often as well, like that whole statement, I didn't focus on socionics, others were typing me EIE, because I wasn't thinking and able to manage information. That is not TI polar. That was mast cell activation influencing my executive functioning with organizing information and mental manipulation of cognitive processes. So people are uninformed on that. Okay, that's number one. And this was never an issue in me before, and I even pointed out the timing with that people were never typing me as that until I became sick. Now, I don't want to show my personal information, so I'm blocking out information. But, these things, and you could just pause it and stuff. The throat burning and stuff, the swollen glands. I had severe postnasal drip, probably with the broken nose cartilage further blocking it and making that severe. That was influencing my cognitive processes. And that's what people were really typing TI polar in myself. I do not have TI polar whatsoever. I showed those Facebook interactions, like, I realized as a social norm that things have their time and place to label, and I recognize the placement of them. I don't necessarily have like a high mature use of it, but that's because I lack 3D or 4D TI. And that was my own, that was not something that I read, it's a social norm, but it's not something that I read. I just realized the social norm, and I was accepting it. That was not producing TI. How I was telling those people, it's a different video. That mast cell activity in my brain was causing more emotional episodes in myself, along with severe cognitive dysfunction. I could not use the correct there. I was misspelling things. I was making those types of contradictions. And I was defensive because I was just constantly on edge, overwhelmed by everything. That flooding me with more information, and that time, was a lot for me and making me more emotionally unstable and dysregulated. And people do not understand how mast cell activity affects your brain. It goes in there and it just really inflames and stresses out the brain and makes it on fire. People even literally can become homicidal from that because it makes you so awry. That's why I was also more aggressive as well. And I wasn't violently aggressive. I was just more petulant, you could say, petulant child. That's also CPTSD as well. It's that combination. I had very, very little control over my behavior. Very little control. And people want to blame me for that. I had absolutely almost no control, other than me showing up to the forum and not taking a break. But the autism fixation, fixating on it, and not having a place where I could express myself, made me stay. And the CPTSD fight response with how I was being treated. I had swollen lymph nodes. The doctor even documented it if you read that paperwork. They were swollen to their max. That was all the inflammation in my body. That was